Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Futurum Tech Podcast. I'm Daniel Newman, your host. I am the CEO and founder of Futurum Group, and very excited today for this interview series here on the Futurum Tech Podcast. I'm going to be talking to Frances Guida. She joins us from HPE, and we're going to be talking about something that that's not true. We're going to be talking about something that everybody is talking about, AI. And I think we're going to have some interesting, different, and of course, unique insights like we do with every guest. Frances, welcome. Thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks, Daniel. It's great to be here.
All right. First and foremost, name, title, specs. Tell us a little bit about the work you're doing over at HPE.
Yeah, so I'm Frances Guida, and I lead our workload solutions team for our HPE ProLiant Compute platform. Those are the ProLiant servers that are the backbone of a lot of enterprise data centers. We look at workloads from, classic virtualization to cloud native workloads, and of course, over the last year and a half, we've had a very intense focus on what we need to do to help get ready for what we really see as the next wave, which is all around AI.
So let's start there with AI. So,
Yep.
by the way, I've had some great conversations with many of your peers. I have a regular sync with Antonio, so I definitely get the background. But what I love in conversations right now is getting the perspectives of people on kind of this broad AI trend line. For some, it feels like it came out of nowhere. For other people, it's like this has been going on for a while. HPE has been doing this for a little while. It isn't brand new, but the popularity from November 22 with the rise of ChatGPT to now has been palpable. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing and hearing about why AI is now so hot for all of your clients.
Yeah, so you are spot on. In fact, I was doing a little bit of research. The concept of AI goes all the way back to the 1930s and Alan Turing. The name itself goes back to 1950s time frame. So it has been around for quite a while. Um, Maybe let me talk a little bit about why now, at least my point of view on why now. There's there's sort of some logical elements, and then of course there's the emotional element of the hook with ChatGPT. But from a logical perspective, um, we we now have, obviously compute power is growing. Moore's law, every 18 months or every 2 years it's doubling, so we have more compute power to throw at things, which means that the AI engineers have had more compute power to throw at those neural networks, the deep learning with the billions and billions of connections. But I think what really has made the difference is that for the last 20-25 years, the world has become digital. So we have all of this massive digital data, whether it's sort of digital text or digital video. And what computers need to do AI is they need to be trained. They need to see a lot of data and identify what the patterns are. So now, unlike 20 years ago or 40 years ago, we have masses of digital data that we can just throw at this AI, at these AI massive engines, and we can find patterns that otherwise couldn't have been found if we didn't have all the data to train it. So I think that's why logically, why now? Of course, sort of emotionally, why now? It's all about the killer app, right? ChatGPT. And I'm not even sure I'd call ChatGPT an app. It's kind of like a great proof of concept about, wow, look what it is that you can do. You can, put a prompt in and get a computer to write a bedtime story for your kid. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, I think what it is it's about hitting this empathic relationship that exists between humans and machines. And
Yeah,
interestingly
I
enough,
like that.
machines can't actually be empathic, but the feeling is, right?
Right,
Historically speaking, like that human machine, it was always a human figuring out how to speak to a machine in the language that the machine understood. So code, right?
right.
And so even like other things like web development or SEO, we learn to optimize. So the early era of Google, because Google's been doing AI a long time, the early era of Google was all about, kind of like humans learning to prompt Google in a way that Google best understood it so it could give you the best return. So you wouldn't say like, I want to go out to dinner at a restaurant that serves French food that's less than 20 miles away. You didn't talk to it like that. You'd be
Right.
like, French restaurant, 20 miles, Santa Clara.
Right.
And, you would hope that it understood that. And over time now, the example I gave is what Chat GPT or Bard or all these different solutions are starting to allow is we start to have these much more humanistic interactions with the machine. I think that's super powerful, but I think it goes so far beyond that. And
Hmm.
your point really comes down to like the data, the exponential nature of data, enterprise data, customer data, experiential data. You got structured and unstructured. You got
Yep.
observability and edge. You've got this whole gamut of
That's
data
right.
that companies are trying to extract value from. And so, while I think this is the opportunity, it also creates a ton of confusion. It creates a ton of challenges. So, talk a little bit about what you're seeing in those customer interactions about how they're adopting this, because it's not just start using Chat GPT, and we certainly aren't just ingesting all of our files. We know, in fact, that we absolutely shouldn't and can't do that if we want to protect ourselves. So, what are you seeing your customers do in terms of trying to move down the adoption curve?
Yeah, well, let me just first of all lay out a couple of sort of the basics of how does AI go from a big model to something that's actually usable from a business perspective. So you have to start with those models, and ChatGPT is a great example of the model. Llama 2, those are all the LLMs, but there's many different kinds of models, and so in order for an enterprise to be able to use AI, you first have to start with someone somewhere has to have created that model. Once the basic models are created, and that's where, again, ChatGPT proved here's a great model that can be used. You want to tune them and customize them. You want to make them smarter to do a specific purpose. Maybe it's to, sort of distinguish between a positive and a negative movie review. And, you got a lot of sarcasm often in movie reviews. So how can the computer identify sarcasm? It's not necessarily evident unless you're teaching it how to do that. And then once you have something tuned, maybe what you've got is an embedded model, which has got private data that's specific to your enterprise. The real magic of AI comes when you can actually use that for inference. So, what I think is going on right now in the industry is all of a sudden we've kind of got this great public, sort of proof that this works. And now there's a massive shift within organizations to figure out how in the world can I put this to use for my business to deliver a better business outcome, because at the end of the day, enterprises are profit making operations, and they're all about how can I do something faster, better, cheaper.
Yeah, you make a lot of good points there, and you definitely. I'm going to ask you here momentarily about inferencing because it definitely is the killer app. We're hearing a lot about training because, well, we know the market always kind of leads the discussion, and all the volume of super powerful A100 and H100 chips from NVIDIA, and this is being, you know, uh, delivered to sell crazy amounts of conceptual AI inferencing in the future, right? We got to train
Right.
all these large language models. We got to get them all prepared, and then the apps will come. We've heard that about 5G too. So we do hope that it actually happens in time. But I do think it will. I do think it will. And I do think what we are starting to see now is we're kind of past I think we're past the peak of hype. Kind of that, like, I feel like the first quarter of this year was like peak hype. Like, oh
Yep.
my gosh, we're going to use these apps, these, like you said, these proof of concepts. And I'm never going to write anything again. I'm never going to have to, build another PowerPoint deck. I'm just going to type in what I want and done. And
That
what we found out is there's a lot of responsibility. There's ethical. There's data
right.
governance. There's, of course, data cleansing. There's sovereignty. There's, all the same problems, by the way, that we had in the big data era. Um, but you did mention that inferencing is kind of the killer workload. I do agree with this. I think we're going to move from training being the story and all the volume, and it's going to move to inferencing. And that's also going to change the whole economics, because who's making money or which companies make money changes, because it goes from very hardware centric to more software centric. So talk about, at least in your mind, why inferencing is so important, why it's kind of the last mile for AI.
Yeah, so I think the best way to illustrate why inferencing is to just think about a use case. And I'm actually going to take a computer vision use case. I know a lot of the buzz is all about, LLMs, but there's a lot that we can do just based on video feeds. And right, cameras these days are everywhere. You go to a gas station and there's a camera aimed at you as you're pumping your gas, and then there's a camera aimed at you as you go into the gas station. There may be one on the outside of the restroom to see who's going into the restroom. Sort of they're everywhere. Retail stores can take all of those video feeds, and all of a sudden they can use inferencing to produce a tremendous amount of real-time insight as well as operational insight. So real-time insight, sort of they can do things like loss prevention. Oh, somebody just snuck a can of soda underneath their coat. I'm going to decide if it's worth it to send my manager out after them, or if I'm just going to let them go because they're a teenager. But at least you can make those decisions, right? It's not it's not something that's just going to happen to you. It's much more under your control. Operational decisions. I've talked to, actually, this is a real example. I've talked to somebody who runs gas stations and convenience stores around at 1,000 locations in the United States. And they're like, yeah, what we want to know is when people pump their gas and then they come into the store, exactly what are they buying so we can maximize the workflow. Now, we've had analytics that have done that, but they don't do that to the specific individual. With video, you follow that individual, you know exactly what it is that they've pulled off. So you can make better decisions about how to maximize the profitability of your convenience store based on what it is you place where. And that's, again, based on a much more granular level of data than what it is we've been able to do in the past with a lot of analytical tools. So I think, those are real world use cases that you can do with AI inference. Now, I haven't even gotten to some of the things you can do with LLMs around, chatbots, around voice detection and fraud detection, around customer service, around recommendation engines, and all of those. Once you've trained them on data, you can then use them on an ongoing basis. And then maybe you want to fine tune them and continuously train them so that they get better and better and better over time.
Yeah, we know reinforcement learning is going to be very important. In
Yeah,
fact, probably one of the more
right.
prophetic things I've thought about is you almost have to have things go wrong in order to make AI work correctly,
Yeah,
right?
that's a
Because
go
it
ahead.
has to keep, like, it continues to learn and get better. So it's
Yeah.
basically, it does what all of the people that we've ever probably been frustrated in managing and stuff don't do. It's like, you make a mistake, great. Did you learn from it? Or are you going to keep doing the same thing? AI will keep learning, and then it gets better. And that's self-driving cars, a great example of
Yep.
the power of reinforcement learning and inference. But look at, like, your Amazon Netflix experiences, like how much better it is now in terms of identifying, like, or like Spotify, the next song you want to hear. It just keeps getting better, and if more data, more opportunity to learn, and there's more continuous improvement in that experience. So, Francis, it's really powerful, and these are everyday examples, and that's also to your point. And I think we made the same point here, is that this isn't all new. I mean, it isn't new. Like, we've been doing this for a while.
We have been doing this for we've have been doing a lot of this for a while. It's just a perspective shift to think about it in a different way, and to think about it in kind of like a way where instead of your improvements being incremental, you can actually make some greater leaps.
We'll call it exponential, right?
Exponential. We'll call it
Exponential.
exponential. There we go. We're
So,
marketing.
let's pivot a little bit to the challenges here.
Yeah.
I speak to a lot of CIOs and CEOs, and this has been really a frontline to board conversation with AI. It changes every part of a business, whether it's a knowledge business, whether it's a very industrial business, lots of labor. We're seeing it make some substantial changes, but the change management is is significant. So talk a little bit about kind of what you're seeing and hearing as the top challenges for your customers in trying to really navigate this path to successfully implementing and utilizing AI.
Yeah, yeah. I'm seeing a couple of challenges. So first of all, I'm seeing, the challenge of is where can I start with this? Okay, I see that this has got a possibility. What's the lowest hanging fruit, both from an implementation perspective, from a risk management point of view, from a learning perspective? Is there something that I can do now that will get me a quick win, and that I can learn from improve? This is not any different than some of the last waves of technology. People need to know where it is that they start. Um, Certainly, from an enterprise perspective, there's a lot of concern about privacy. I don't, I know a number of corporations who are actually restricting use of tools like ChatGPT because, yes, AI learns and gets better. And the way it learns and gets better is by taking the data that you put into ChatGPT to use it, to then use that to chunk through the next set of data. So if you put company private data out into that ChatGPT, you've just taken company private data and you've put it into the general public. So a lot of organizations are very, very rightly concerned about how do they make sure that they keep the things that are private to them within their organizations, and they don't, and there's lots of solutions for that, right? So this doesn't prevent you from using AI. It just means you have to use things a little bit differently, than what you might give to a general purpose public.
Yeah, that's a great point. Companies have to really navigate everything from, is the material accurate? Can it be trusted? Is, if you did use an AI or an LLM, is it your material? What's the source,
Right.
attribution, right, license? If that's being used, is all the data private? In different global jurisdictions, you have much more severe penalties for private data leaking out than perhaps in the US. So you've got a lot of risk there. And you're seeing companies stepping up and actually saying, like, if you use our generative tools, we'll go to court with you.
Yep,
We will.
I have seen some stories about that just today, actually.
Yeah, so there's some of that out there, and I think companies like HPE are going to be thinking about this, as how it can make sure that customers can adopt and can feel comfortable and know that, while technology is constantly improving, it can be mighty imperfect at times. So, Francis, to wrap things up, I guess let's kind of end with HPE. You've
Yep.
given some great perspective on your lens and through the customers and conversations. But what is HPE's kind of unique? What is its IP and its expertise that it's bringing to this particular conversation? There's so many companies. Every company this year, I've been a 100 events this year, and every company is saying we're the AI company. How is HPE, making that claim and kind of differentiating itself?
Well, I can't speak about all of the other companies, but I think we are entitled to that label. So we have the largest supercomputers on the planet that are built with HPE, the HPE Cray supercomputers. So in terms of building the machines that can do that AI training and modeling, sort of HPE is hands down, I would say, the leader in building those things. But it goes beyond that, because AI is not just about those computers. It's about having the right software to help organizations navigate through. Taking advantage of that, managing all of the data it is that they have. So we've got a whole set of tools there. And then finally, and I think this is where we haven't, sort of, we're really at the very, very tip of the iceberg. Um, it's all the opportunity for AI, not now, but in 2 years, in 3 years, is all around that inference. And I think HPE, what we've already done with our HPE ProLiant Gen 11 to really create systems that are optimized for AI inference, we have that out of the gate. We're ready to go, and that's something that's only going to get better from here on in.
Well, congratulations, Francis, on all the success. It is an exciting time, from speaking with you, speaking many of your colleagues, partners, and other executives across the HPE team. I think there's a lot of very interesting work and exciting work that's being done. We know it's a ecosystem, a lot of partnership, a lot of collaboration.
Big time.
No one company, despite how much some companies want to believe they are the entire solution, will provide everything consumers and enterprises need for AI. But HPE continues on the compute side through software, through hybrid cloud offerings. Edge has impressed me as an analyst with what it's doing, how it's positioning, and how it will play an important role for many companies in their approach to deliver and take advantage of the promise of AI. So, friends, hope to have you back sometime soon here on the Futurum Tech Podcast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, everybody, hit that subscribe button. Join us here for all of our episodes of the Futurum Tech Podcast and our interview series with myself, all of our other analysts, and so many thoughtful leaders from across the technology industry. But for this episode, I've got to say goodbye. See y'all really soon.